Hi, everyone. This is Steve Delisant, and this is CEOs You Should Know. I'm sitting down with Rob Simmelcare. He is the CEO of the New York Roadrunners. Rob, welcome to the show.
Steve, thank you. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you today. So, as always, we love to jump right in and really hear a little bit about yourself. Obviously, currently you're the CEO, but I'd love for you to take the listeners just really through your background and what got you to the seat right now.
Sure. So I'm a native New Yorker. I was born not far from where we're sitting on the east side of Manhattan.
Very cool.
Grew up a little bit in the city and then in New Jersey, but I went to high school in New York City. This is really kind of my hometown. After college at Dartmouth College, and then I went to law school as well at Harvard and practiced law for a few years. My first love really was sports. Going back to high school, I played baseball. I ran cross country, went to high school up in Riverdale, and just loved sports. And that was kind of my thing. And so as I went through different phases of my life, I was always like looking for a way to get back into sports because it was what I loved. And after a few years of practicing law at a big law firm in New York, which was, kind of hit or miss for me, I got an opportunity to get back into sports. I got an offer to join ESPN in an executive role.
Mhm.
And so jumped at that, went to ESPN. I had a number of really cool jobs at ESPN. I was there for almost 10 years.
Very cool.
Along the way, I had the unique opportunity to not only be in the business, but also get to do some on-air stuff, which is something I had really started doing when I was in college,
Mhm.
doing play-by-play for sports teams and things like that, and loved that. And so I actually had a unique path for a while in my sports media career at ESPN and then later at NBC Sports, where I was on the air and an executive in both places at the same time, which I loved. So I got a chance to really have a great experience in the sports media world. And in 2019, I left NBC, went on to, start a little business, worked for Tennis Channel as well, doing on-air stuff there for a while, which I loved. And then the opportunity came along in 2022 to join New York Roadrunners. And I'd known New York Roadrunners for years. I had run my first marathon way back in 1997, the year I graduated law
Wow.
school, and then run another one in 2013. I'd, been a runner, as I had mentioned, since
Mhm.
high school. So, the opportunity to come in and lead this organization, which is such an iconic part of New York. Anybody
Absolutely.
who is from New York, who has spent time here or knows the TCS New York City Marathon, knows how big
Yep.
this organization is to New York. When the opportunity came along, I couldn't say no. So here I
Yeah,
am.
absolutely. Must be such a surreal moment to be born and bred in New York. Obviously, grow up seeing everything about the New York Marathon, and now get to be the guy that's really leading the way. So, very impressive journey. Thanks for taking us
I
through
would
that.
say thank you. And I would say I had a lot of surreal moments over the last year since I've been CEO, especially last year during the marathon. When we kicked everything off, we have this big kickoff
Yep.
event called the Blue Line Painting right at the finish line of in Central Park. And I'm standing there with all these amazing people, the people who run our city, police commissioner and heads of all these different departments, deputy mayor of New York, all this media there. And here we are kicking off
That's
the
awesome.
TCS New York City Marathon, and I'm kind of in the middle of all of it. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. So
What an awesome moment. Probably
it
the
was great.
energy was unbelievable
It
that
was
morning. So,
amazing.
that's
Yes.
great. So, obviously, CEO now, but let's take us back, take the listeners back. What was your first ever job?
The first time anybody ever paid me to do anything was like a checkout kid at ShopRite grocery stores
Love
in
that.
Emerson, New Jersey. One summer, I think I was just, sitting around not doing anything. And it was probably my dad who was like, kid, like, get out of here, like, go get a job. And so I went down the street and I think I was a bagger at first. And then I got promoted to actually being on the register. And actually, I have to say, I think that was a pretty good experience because you're dealing with the public.
Yep.
And I learned at a very young age, like what it's like to deal with people in the public. And, it's always a mixed bag. You get some people who are really happy and chatty and want to thank you and are just in the best mood. And then you get folks who are just having a bad day or whatever. And you learn through those kinds of roles just how to deal with people.
Oh,
Which I
yeah.
think is one of the most important skills you can have in your career. So I really think, especially when you're young,
Hmm.
it's great to have those jobs, being a waiter or being, working in a store, a cash register, whatever it is, where you're just dealing with folks because it's a skill.
Absolutely. My first job, I was working at Chili's, so I completely agree on the customer satisfaction side, right? You learn a lot about people and obviously how to handle yourself in business too.
100%.
So
Yeah.
you obviously have had a lot of experience in different industries with sports and legal field and other executive roles. What advice would you give someone that's just brand new to the industry?
A lot of people want to be in this industry because people have passion for it. They
Hmm.
love sports. They love, entertainment, media. So the first thing is just get a foot in the door somewhere, find a way to get in there. My first foot in the door was an internship. When
Hmm.
I was in college, I was fortunate enough to get an internship at CBS Sports. And I worked one summer with all the folks, working on the NCAA tournament and the US Open tennis and baseball at the time. And so I really learned by just being in that space with people. So get yourself in
Yep.
somewhere to see how it happens. And then the second thing for me was the importance of relationships. A guy I worked with when I was an intern at CBS Sports in college, a guy named Len DeLuca, and I always use his name because I owe a lot of my career to him. He went on to become a senior vice president at ESPN, and the two of us kind of stayed in touch through different things over the years. And it was Len who got hired me at ESPN years later after I went to law school and was practicing law. It was, a good 7 or 8 years later. He's the one who gets me in the door, gets me into ESPN, and everything followed from that. So building those relationships
Absolutely.
and then keeping them up,
Yep.
just staying in touch with people. I think that's a huge part of how you can be successful in anything, but especially in an industry like this, which is very relationship oriented.
100%.
You've got to just establish and nurture those relationships with people.
Yeah, 100%. Great advice because you never know where people are going to end up either, right? They might switch companies, they might switch industries, and new doors open and new opportunities arise. So that's
Absolutely. And for me, I still try really hard to do that. It's hard because I'm really busy right now, but
hmm
I get text messages from former colleagues who just want to catch up, and I always try to find that time to just call in, check in with people, what's going on, how are you doing, because I really feel you just want to be helpful. It's
Yep.
part of what you want to be in life is, helpful to other people on the journey. And then of course, I do feel things come full circle.
Absolutely.
When you're in a position where you need help with something, it helps to have helped a lot of people along
Yeah,
the way.
100% has to go both ways, always, right? So in your current role, tell me a little bit about your leadership style.
Well, I've been in this role for just over a year and it's my first CEO position. So I've learned a lot about myself, to be honest, in this year, learning about my leadership style. I think if someone asked me that a year ago, I would have had an answer that I think would be different now, having done it for a year. And I think what I try to do is, first of all, I try to inspire people toward a direction that I think the organization can go in.
Hmm.
I try to point to the North Star and say, okay, listen, here's where we are, but this is where we could be. This is where we want to go. And can we all just remember directionally as an organization where we want to be going and always check in with ourselves and ask, is this thing we're doing or that, this initiative or that, is it consistent with the direction of what we want to be as an organization? What is our mission and what is our purpose?
Hmm.
And is this thing moving us in that direction or not? So I try to do that in a way that inspires people. Our organization is all about inspiring people. The
Absolutely.
mission of New York Roadrunners is to help and inspire people through running. And so if we're going to do that to people on the outside in the public, we also have to do it internally.
Yep.
We have to inspire ourselves and each other to be the best we can be. So I think that's kind of the core of it. And then, when you're talking about managing people, I really believe that you should let people do their jobs, right? You set that direction, you set that strategy, that guiding light, and then let them do what they do, right? And I try not to get too in the weeds on the individual day to day of everything that's going on. Frankly, if I did try, I would not sleep, right? I would be up every day, every night, trying to deal with the details of this and that. There's too many things going on. We have over 200 employees. We're an organization with a
Mhm.
lot happening, and so I can't be in the middle of everything, and I don't want to be. So I let people do what they do, and my approach to getting in the weeds is as needed, right? So
Mhm.
when there's a situation, a crisis, a problem somewhere, that's when I'll tend to dig in a little bit deeper and try to understand what's going on and see if we can come up with a solution or an influence outcomes a little bit more directly. But that's the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, makes total sense to me. Well, love hearing about your background. A lot of New Yorkers obviously know the New York City Marathon, right? But a lot of them probably don't really know the history behind the New York Roadrunners. Would you walk us through that?
Yeah, so, there's actually been a lot of focus on our history recently because there's an exhibit here in New York, which has been going on for a while. It goes through February 25th at the New York Historical Society. If
Oh,
people are
awesome.
if people are in town, they can check it out.
Very cool.
And it's about a predecessor organization to New York Roadrunners called the Pioneer Club. And it was a club in Harlem that was a running club. It was started by a guy named Joe Yancey, and he believed that running was universal and that it could be used as a way to bring people together of different races and backgrounds and sort of help people become better and also help others learn about each other through running. And that was really the predecessor to what would become New York Roadrunners. In the 1950s, a guy who had been involved with the New York Pioneers Club named Ted Corbett really was the founding president of New York Roadrunners. Ted was an incredible distance runner. He was an Olympic marathoner. He would run hundreds and hundreds of miles a week. He lived in New York City and lived in the Bronx and would commute from the Bronx to downtown Manhattan by running. He would run down
Crazy.
and run back, and then sometimes would put in a few extra miles after that because it wasn't enough. And so Ted Corbett and the people around him really created what was a club at the time. It was a club where they would get together and they would go on runs together. They would say, okay, we're going to measure a 10-mile race, and they would use their cars to measure 10 miles in the Bronx or in Yonkers or somewhere in the city. And then they'd go out on the weekends and they'd run these runs together, and they would keep times. And so it was truly a club. And then it really transformed with the New York Marathon, started in 1970, just running laps around Central Park. And then the big idea that really transformed the organization was the idea of turning that marathon in the park to a 5-borough race, starting in Staten Island, as we all know, going over the bridge into Brooklyn, through Queens, Manhattan, the Bronx, back to Manhattan, finishing in Central Park. That, of course, has become one of the truly iconic events in the world. So Fred LeBeau was the man who really led the organization through that period of explosive growth and brought it, put it on the path to what it's become today.
That's awesome. What a great history, and now what a great legacy that first running club has left us with as New Yorkers, right? With the iconic New York City Marathon. So now being in the CEO role, what's your vision for the future? So amazing history, amazing past. Obviously, now looking ahead to 2024 and beyond. What's next?
We have so much going on at Roadrunners. Of course, we have the marathon, but we put on about 40 races a year
Wow.
for adults, many more for kids. And so we just have so much happening, and running is really hot right now. During the pandemic, a lot of people started to run because there was nothing else you could do, right? Remember those days you'd be sitting around and,
Very
you couldn't
true.
be around anyone. We're all, kind of like losing it, right?
Yep.
Because we were pent up. So a lot of people found running, which was great. And so many of them have stayed with it that we have this unbelievable demand now for our races. I mean, all of our races are sold out. Pretty much every race since I've been CEO has been sold out. So that's a beautiful thing. But frankly, I also take it as a bit of a challenge that we have because we've got to find ways to get new runners into the ecosystem. We need new people to join New York Roadrunners, to start running. So one of the things I'm really focused on is how do we find ways to engage people other than just running in our races? A lot of that can be through technology.
Yep.
We have a virtual racing program that we've had since before the pandemic with Strava, where people can run races wherever they are and get credit and even get medals for those races. So that's one element of it. Inspiring people through content. We launched a podcast I know we'll talk about, and other forms of content which can get people connected with us and connected with the sport of running without necessarily having to be in our races. So yes, we want everybody to run the marathon. We want everybody to run our races, but we want people all around the country and the world to be running as part of what we do as well.
Yeah, what would you tell someone that's brand new to running? They've never ran before. They are interested in trying it out. Like, what's the first step on that journey?
Starting a marathon, it takes a single step, right? I mean, it really does start with one step and just that run down the block, right? Not trying to bite off too much out of the gate, I think, is the number one thing. I interviewed a guy on our podcast, Set the Pace, recently, who had recovered from cancer. He had gone through chemo and all kinds of treatment and started trying to get back into shape by running 200 meters. That's halfway around your typical track. And that turned into running 400 meters, running 800 meters. And 3 months after finishing cancer treatment, this person ran a marathon, right?
Wow.
That was exceptional, right?
Yeah.
That's not what most people are going to do. But I've talked to lots of people who said, okay, can I run 1 mile? I think I can run one
Yep.
mile, right? And it may take a few efforts, and run walking is also a beautiful thing too, where you run, 100 meters and then you walk 100 meters and you run and you walk and you run and you walk. That's a great way to build up, getting yourself into running. And we have a walking program actually at New York Road Runners called Striders,
Okay.
one of our community programs that's mostly focused on older adults, and they walk. But then sometimes they'll say, okay, you know what, I'm going to walk for a while, then I'm going to run for a while. And so that's a way to start to build up the
Yep.
endurance in your body. And next thing you know, you're running a 5K, and maybe that becomes a 10K, and maybe it becomes a half marathon, but it doesn't have to.
Yep.
Because it's okay if you stay at a mile or you stay at 5K, you're still a runner.
Yep.
And I always want to make sure people know that you don't have to run marathons to be a runner and get a tremendous amount out of it.
It's good to know. It's all about those little milestones, though. I think you hit it on the head, right? Building your endurance and then kind of like pushing yourself to the next level. You touched on this a little bit earlier. Obviously, technology and all the latest trends are really helping advance running. How have you guys noticed that, and what are you guys doing with technology to help running?
Well, I mean, on the actual running side, there's been a lot. I mean, first of all, just what it takes to put on a race, our timing and scoring and how we score our races. We're able to give everybody really, seamless, exact times for when they run, what they ran. They can go back and look at their race results with us over many, many years. So, and people love that. Runners love to know how they're doing.
Tracking them as they're along the race as
That's
well, right?
Plus, at the start of a race now, especially among the serious runners toward the front of our races, you see them all looking at their watches. They're all hitting go start when they cross the starting line. They all want to know exactly how they're running. They're checking back, looking at their pace along the way. These watches now are incredible. They'll tell you pretty much exactly what pace you're running at every single moment. So you get a lot of feedback now from technology in terms of how you're doing and how you're running. And then, on the tech side as well, I mean, part of it for us is using technology to lead people to running, right? Getting people aware of races and signed up for races and things like that. And then lastly, one of the things that's really interesting now is the technology of the shoe. You're seeing records broken over and over again at the marathon level and other levels because all the shoe manufacturers, New Balance is our partner, but all the big shoemakers, they're all coming up with new technology that's going in the shoes. And you're seeing, times that are faster and faster and faster.
That's incredible.
The Olympic trials for the United States marathon team, I just attended that in Orlando a couple of weeks ago, and the women's record was broken for the American trials, right? We've seen records in the men's and the women's marathon set recently. Unfortunately, we had a real tragedy in the last week. Kelvin Kiptum, who had just set the world record for the marathon on the men's side in Chicago in October, tragically passed away in a car accident in Kenya, where he and his family and friends have been in our thoughts this week. But he appeared to be on the verge of maybe running the first sub 2 hour marathon competition, and I think we will see that sometime in the next 5 years.
That's crazy. And a lot of it's thanks to really like the groundbreaking technology and really helping those people. You said earlier, obviously new runners condition and push themselves, but now with technology, advanced runners are now able to get that in real time and that feedback and be able to push themselves in real time to get to the next level, right?
100%. Yeah, they've done incredible things, and that's the way it is in all sports. You see technology changes the way sports are played. I'm a big tennis player and tennis fan, and I can still think back to when I was playing with a wooden racket. I remember watching Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe play that great Wimbledon final in 1980 with rackets that belong in the museum now. And you see how that sport has changed, and so many other sports, golf and many others. So that's just part of the natural progression of any sport.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said earlier about your style of CEO and really how you've been running the New York Road Runners. Tell us a little bit about the culture of the organization.
It's a culture that, not surprisingly, is very much driven by what we do, which is running. You walk around our office in the morning or late in the day, and you'll see people who have just finished a run or are on their way out to a run. We have people running, marathons all over the world every single year. You walk down past people's desks, and you'll see the the bibs of races they've run in, and medals oftentimes hanging there as well. Not everybody runs.
Mhm.
We have a lot of non-runners in the organization as well, but I think the ethos of running and what it's all about, how it brings people together,
Absolutely.
and how it's accessible to anyone, I think is a big part of our culture. I think the other part of the culture that's important is our mission, and we don't just put on races. We have a tremendous impact, especially here in the five boroughs of New York City, in a number of our community programs. Our Rising New York Roadrunners program, which serves kids in mostly public schools in New York and other places around the country. Our Open Run program, which is a place for run by volunteers primarily, but anybody can come run for free in any New York City park, week in and week out. The Striders program that I mentioned. We have so many programs that impact people, and
Yep.
we know that we're changing lives. I think
Yeah.
everybody there knows that what we're doing is really making people's lives better. And so that's why they want to work at New York Roadrunners. We're a
Yep.
not-for-profit organization. We're not out there trying to maximize our profits. We're trying to give back.
Yeah.
We're fortunate to have amazing legacy properties like the marathon and others, and we have great partners on the corporate side as well. But at the end of the day, it's about changing lives through running, and I
Mhm.
think everybody really does understand that. So I feel like it's a pretty cohesive culture because we all know that our mission is important and that it really does change
Yeah.
lives.
You're impacting everyday people, and that's a great culture to set, and obviously inspiring to be able to represent that and push for it. The community events you mentioned, how could people find out more about that?
If you go to nyrr.org, you can run through all of the things that we've got going on, our races, but also all of the community programs like Open Run that anybody can go and join a run for free anytime they want and just start to get into the sport of running. It's all there. And I think one of the things I like most about a lot of our community programs are they're not just about the running. They're about the community. They're about the people that you meet,
Hmm.
the communities that have formed around so many of these events. We've got folks who are, have met their closest friends, through running in New York City. And that really is what I think a lot of people don't even understand about
Yeah.
running is how, yes, it's an individual sport in its way. And I'll admit, most of my life that I've spent running, I've run by myself.
Yep.
I grab my iPhone, throw in my AirPods, and I go for a run. And that's great. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's a way that you can be consistent and run and enjoy it. But something changes when you start running with other people.
Hmm.
You have a level of accountability because they're there, and hey, we're meeting at 7 a.m. for our Tuesday run, right?
Yep.
You don't want to let them down.
Yeah.
You want to be there. You start to create bonds with these folks.
Yep.
And that's the part that I really love. The whole run club community here in New York is so vibrant. And you can go on our website actually and learn all about all the different run clubs that exist in New York. Find one, meet them for a run, join it, and create a community. And I've met so many people who have met their spouses in these clubs. They've
That's
met their
awesome.
best friends. So that's another part of the running scene that I really recommend people check out.
Yeah, nowadays community is more important than ever, right? So it's really cool to see it go kind of full circle, right? It started with being a running club, and even today, seems like such an important part of the organization and just really running culture overall.
Yes, and I think that's another remnant of the pandemic. I think it was all that time that we spent being alone, being separated from each other, that I think has led to so much more appreciation that we have for being together
Yep.
and having the chance to meet other people. So I think that's why we're seeing what we're seeing, especially here in New York, is this incredible sort of fervor
Yeah.
for running, and especially for running in groups with
100%.
clubs.
I feel like it instantly bonds you with somebody. Like if you have ever mentioned I ran the New York City Marathon and someone else did, you guys have like this instant connection, this instant bond that you just can't create any other way.
Absolutely. I love it.
So we've talked about obviously all the races being sold out this year, the different technology, the different community events. What's next for New York Roadrunners? What do you see as the future?
Well, we are about to embark on a 5-year strategic plan. We're going to be rolling it out in the next couple of months to our team and externally. And, we're really focused on some key pillars that we want to, make clear is, where we want to go. I mean, first and foremost, great events is what we're most known for. So we want to continue to push the envelope with the marathon, with our incredible set of other marquee races, the United Airlines NYC Half, which is in March, the RBC Brooklyn Half, which is in May. We want to keep putting on great events, right? So that's a big part of it. Secondly, we really want to make sure that, in the 5 boroughs of New York is where our focus is in terms of making an impact. There's so much need in New York.
Mhm.
There's so many communities around our city that really need help. And with what's going on in the city right now, there are real budget issues.
Absolutely.
A lot of that is affecting the schools. And what often happens is PE, physical education, is kind of the first thing to get cut
Hmm.
when schools are having issues with their budgets. And we really feel that we can play a significant role in filling some of that gap, getting kids active, keeping them active, importing some of this running club culture that we've
Hmm.
talked about with adults, importing that to some of the school kids as
Great.
well, to really help at that level teach kids some of the valuable lessons that you get from running, right? So that's a big part of it. And then we talked about technology, and getting ourselves as an organization to a point where we're really using technology to bring people into our ecosystem, to bring people into the sport of running. So those are 3 key pillars. And then another thing I know that we want to do more of going forward is telling our story, right?
Hmm.
Telling the story of New York Roadrunners, what it is that we do, why people should want to be a part of it, and the story of runners, right? The stories of how many people have successfully changed their lives through running. That's a big part of the Inspire thing,
Hmm.
and getting people to see that through these stories, there's a place for them in running. When I stood at the starting line of the New York City Marathon this year, I gave a speech where I said, "Hey, everybody at the starting line, I want to say congratulations." And you might be wondering, why am I saying congratulations? Like you haven't even run the race yet. But what I want to say is congratulations for getting yourself here, right? How hard it is to just get yourself to the starting line of the TCS New York City Marathon, the dedication and the work it takes to get there. So I say congratulations for being here. And everything you do over the next 26.2 miles is a celebration of what you did to get here, right? So I want more people to see that, to have
Hmm.
that feeling, and to realize that, you know, running can change your life. A saying I use a lot when I speak to groups is running is a lot like life. Running a marathon is so much like life. It's really hard. Along the way, you're going to have periods where you're in a lot of pain. It's unpleasant. You want to quit, right? You're like, whatever this thing you're trying to accomplish is, this company you're trying to start, or this relationship you're having trouble with, whatever it is, you may want to quit at some point along the way. And there's nothing easier to do than to quit running a marathon, right? You're running along and you just, you just stop. You stop and you walk off. It's really easy.
Yeah.
The people who get to the finish line are the ones who didn't take that option to quit. And those people end up doing a lot of amazing things in the world because they learned how to not quit. So I think that's what I want people to get from us.
I love that. I love that analogy. You hit it spot on. We're excited to see what's next for you guys too, and be able to watch along the way. So you mentioned earlier you guys have a podcast, right? So tell
We
us a little bit
do,
about that.
yeah. So we launched a podcast last September. When I came in as CEO, I thought, gosh, so many people are out there training for the marathon, and it takes a lot of hours to train for the
That's right.
marathon. I love listening to podcasts when I run, and I thought, why don't we give folks something to listen to while
Yeah.
they're training for the marathon? So we launched the podcast called Set the Pace. I actually co-host it. I'm drawing on some of my old broadcasting experience
Very cool.
with Meb Keflezighi, and Meb was the 2009 New York City Marathon champion. He also won the Boston Marathon in 2014. He won an Olympic silver medal in the marathon in 2004. And he is just so beloved by runners here in New York and in Boston and around the world. I walk around with Meb, and he's just a rock star because he's such an inspiring figure. He was born in Eritrea. His family didn't have anything.
Wow.
They moved from there to Italy and then later to San Diego, California. And Meb tells the story of the first time he ever ran was in gym class in high school in San Diego, California. They said, "Okay, you kids go out there, run a mile. Let's see how you do." Meb went out, ran the first mile he ever ran in 5 minutes and 1 second. And his gym teacher was like, "Have you ever run before?" And he's like, "No." And the teacher was like, "Okay, you're going to run in the Olympics." And he ended up running the Olympics and winning
Wow.
a silver medal. He's just an incredible person. He's so loved. He really knows the sport of running. So we started back in September. We've been dropping episodes every single week. And we talk to people who have had incredible things happen through running, whether it's running the marathon or other things they've done to make their lives better, or the lives of other people in many cases better through running. So there's just such an incredible community. Honestly, I think we could do one every day and they would all be
Yeah.
amazing in terms of the stories that you'd hear. But we do it once a week because, we've got other things to do as well. But it's a lot of fun. It's available in all the usual places, Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that.
Very cool.
iHeart as well, I think. So we
Absolutely.
hope to have people join us and listen. It's a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
well, I'm excited to tune in, and you hit it spot on, right? When people are running, they got their AirPods in, and they're tuning into audio. So really smart idea to be able to resonate with the community. Well, we covered a lot of topics today. Anything you feel like we might have missed that you want our listeners and New Yorkers to know about New York Roadrunners?
I just think I always want people to know that we're about the marathon, but so much more. That first Sunday in November is the best day of the year in New York City, and we love that. Marathon Day is incredible here, and we're so proud to be a part of that great day every year. But we don't just go away after that. We are not only putting on races all year, but we are out there in the community changing lives through running every single day. And there's so many opportunities for people to join us, to support what we do as a member of the organization, as a donor. As I mentioned, we're a not-for-profit, and so we have people contribute to us and help us make our programs a reality by donating to us and becoming a part of the community that way. So I just hope folks will go to NYRR.org, follow us on social media as well, to see all the things that we do all year long, and hopefully they'll be inspired to join us and help us change lives through running year in and year out.
Awesome. Well, Rob, thank you so much for sitting down with us. I personally feel like I learned a ton about the New York Roadrunners that I did not prior, and your story is very inspiring. So really excited to hear everything you have planned for the future.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When are we going to see you at the starting line? Of a race?
Most I've done is a 5K, so we'll see. Maybe I could push myself using some technology and take it to the next level.
I'm sure and you know what? If you run a 5K, you're a runner. So
that's true. I found that out today because I did not consider myself a runner. So now I do.
We got lots of 5Ks. So
I can
join
say
us at one
the
of those.
CEO of New York Roadrunner told me I am a runner, so I have officially made it. But yes, excited, and I'm going to take you up on that. So
thank you very much.
Thank you again for being with us. If you guys want to find out more about Rob and New York Roadrunners, go on CEOs You Should Know on the landing page, and more information in the link. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks, everyone.